Yeah.
So speaking of clients, and I think this may be a good segue to getting back to how you got started back in the business, and we'll get back to how we collect in general,
Mhm.
you and I and everybody else. But so you're putzing around for 8 years after college.
Right.
You're buying coins on eBay, right? You're buying
Right.
time before the next move in your career, whatever it's going to be, and then kind of get into the coin business.
Yeah. So I was, like I said, I was bored in my current, career isn't really even the word job. I didn't have a career path. I just kind of had a job while I was figuring out what I want to do with myself. Decide I'm bored, and finally decided I want to make my hobby, see if I can make this a profession. So I made a little price list of some things that I had acquired, stuff that I had accumulated over the years. Don't think I really ever sold anything on the price list. I put like a classified ad in like a coin magazine, like, hey, send for my price list of coins for sale. But right at that time, another friend of mine who I knew from playing in bands had like a guy he worked with whose dad had like a collection and he wanted to sell it, and he said, hey, can you help this guy? So I ended up like meeting the guy, getting these coins, uh, putting that like to make my like the a lot of my price list actually was from this collection that was consigned to me. And I went ran around to like a coin show and sold a bunch of the coins wholesale to other dealers and made a little, not didn't really make any, made a little bit
Yeah.
of money, but no, nothing to write home about, nothing that's going to pay the bills. But it gave me the experience, and it, got me talking to dealers and starting to understand how the business side of it worked a little bit. Um, and then I ended up getting in touch with Stacks. Now, Stacks is the oldest coin auction house in the country. It's now in its third generation. They started in the 1930s in Midtown Manhattan. So I got in touch with them because I have a second cousin, or I guess my mom's first cousin, who worked at Sotheby's, who was friendly with Larry Stack, who was the president at the time. So he kind of put me in touch with them. So I started calling Larry Stack and talked to him. I sent him my little list so he could see that I knew how to write descriptions. I knew what I was talking about. Might not have been an expert yet, but he could see that I had some basis of knowledge, you know. And that kind of got my foot in the door there. And after kind of going back and forth calling him for a few months, he finally offered me a position, and I started Stacks. That was 2003. So 2003, started working there. Um, at first, it was just organizing the coins for their auctions because they had auctions every month.
Now this was 2003, so probably not a huge online presence at that time. So when you're talking about auctions, you're talking like face to face, kind of like in-person auctions, right?
Right, live auctions,
Live
Stacks,
auctions.
Stacks because they were so kind of steeped in tradition. They were kind of the last of the big auction houses to really migrate to the internet. Now
Right.
everything's, even when there's a live auction, there's an internet component to it. But yeah, at the time it was still all, guys in a room with their paddles,
Mm.
which, like I said, still happens. But even a live auction, I remember when I started there, some of these, if it was an important auction with some really, rare, an important collection came up, you might have 100 people in a room bidding. Now an auction like that, it's really unusual. Like, you go on an auction where, in the past there might have been 50 people, now there's like 10 people and everybody else is just placing their bids online.
Mm. Mm.
So that has changed it a lot. But yeah, at the time it was still all live in person auctions.
So then how long are you at Stacks for before you transition to your next phase?
Okay. So I was at Stacks for 7 years, 2010. And at that time I had seen a lot of stuff because I had done a bunch of different, kind of wore a bunch of hats, did writing catalog descriptions, but primarily most of the time I spent at the counter, working the counter, just people coming in the door.
And so that was like the primary flow of business. This is still before any kind of internet or before stacks really kind of migrated towards the
Yeah,
internet.
there was some internet going on, but it still was a smaller part of the business at the time.
And you guys were by Times Square, kind of, right?
We're it was 57th between 6th and 7th. So basically across the street from Carnegie Hall,
Okay,
like 2 blocks
gotcha.
from Central Park.
Okay,
So a great location,
yeah.
great Midtown Manhattan, beautiful location. They'd been in that location for a very long time. They recently moved now, just this year, but they were in that location, I think, from the 50s until just 2020 or 2019. Like, so yeah, but that was probably, I'd have to imagine, one of the busier coin stores in the country, or
Oh, yeah.
maybe in the world, because you're in such a prime location. But you get a lot of like I'd call stuff. You
Mhm.
get a lot of just generic things that are worth value just because of the silver content or gold content.
Mhm.
But you also get some amazing things. You
Yeah.
never know what's going to walk through the door. Most of the more important kind of things that did come in, it was a collector that had bought through stacks auctions for years, and we knew them, and but every once in a while somebody come in with something just mind blowing. You'd be like,
Right.
didn't expect to see that today.
Right, right. So you get a lot of mostly foot traffic in, and very little online presence. But now, so are you, and you're writing descriptions for auctions and catalogs. Are you going out? Are you traveling? Are you going to collectors? Are you getting consignments that way? Are you pitching? I'm not sure how it works. Are you pitching them stacks or yourself in order to sell their collection for them? Is that how kind of
Yeah,
what's
at
going
the
on?
time, yeah. So I was, a lot of people just come in, they just look in the phone book. A lot of people aren't coin collectors. They don't know who, they just look in the phone book, and you get the
Right.
biggest ad, and you've been there for 50 years, so they come in. And but yeah, bigger, more rare things. At the time, I'm trying to pitch for them to consign stuff to auction and things like that. Um, so I did that a while, and it was a really amazing experience because I'm working with, you know, Harvey Stack, who is Larry. So Larry was my boss. Harvey was his dad. Harvey still came in the office and worked every day, and I was there till 2010. And I remember talking to him at the time, and he told me he had been working in the store full time since, I forget what year, but it was in the 1940s.
Yeah.
Like, so that, I mean, so the amount of knowledge like these guys
Yeah.
had was, and Larry was there since the 70s,
Yeah.
and a lot of the guys who worked in the store had been there since, the 70s or 80s. And, so I was surrounded by these guys who'd been doing it for so long now. Stacks has changed a lot now. Like I said, they've merged, with a couple different companies. Like it's not the same, quite the same as it was then. But I was just surrounded by some of these guys who I just learned so much. Like it just,
Yeah, like the institutional knowledge
oh
was a,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, like I said, I'd handle, people come in with the bins of wheat pennies like I started with as a kid that are worth, 1.5 cents
Right.
each,
Right.
and somebody would come in with a Stella, which is a $4 gold piece that's worth, a damaged one is like $40,000. Like,
Right.
you see, all kinds of things like this, so, and it depends what it is, you buy it or you take it on consignment or whatnot.
So you're going
Um,
to coin shows too. You're kind of getting embedded in the community. People are recognizing you now.
a little, because I didn't do that many shows with them.
Okay.
Certain people did the shows. I usually stayed back. I did do some shows, so I got to know some people from the shows. Also, like you said, at the time it was still a live auction, so I got to know a lot of dealers who would come to the auctions. They'd come the week before to lot viewing to view all the coin.
Mhm.
You look at the lots in the auction, so I get to know them there. Um, so yeah, I'm starting to kind of meet a lot of people. Um, and a lot of it was primarily, at the time at least, was like wholesale. Like there's a lot of dealers buying in the auctions because also then too, you got to remember now. Like I talked to briefly, most of the coins now are graded.
Mhm.
there's PCGS, Professional Coin Grading Service, and NGC, Numismatic Guarantee Corporation. They examine the coins, authenticate them, grade them. They put it in an airtight holder so that it's tamper proof. It's not airtight, but it's tamper proof. So it has a little cert that tells you
Mhm.
the grade of the coin, everything, and you can't switch the coin. Now, at the time, Stacks, like I said, still very steeped in tradition of what they'd been doing since the 1930s. They still weren't really using third-party grading. So retail people were not as comfortable bidding on certain high-end things, whereas dealers who really knew their stuff, they'd look at the coins and trust their ability to grade them
Right.
and buy them. So a lot of it was still dealers. So I got to meet a lot of I met a lot of collectors too, but I met a lot of dealers that way.
So now, it's 2010. You're working at Stacks now.
Mhm.
You make a big change here, right? Is this around
Yeah,
the time where you make a big change? You
yeah.
meet some people and you move.
Right. Yeah. So 2010, I see an ad in the Coin Dealer newsletter, which is kind of the wholesale, kind of price guide uh, for a company looking for a coin buyer, and they're out in the Los Angeles area, and I wasn't really interested in moving to Los Angeles. I kind of like New Jersey, New York.
Yeah.
That's where I'm from. I like pizza. I like bagels. You know. But I call them, and I'm like curious, like, oh, this is interesting. So I call these guys and answer this ad, and they invite me out for an interview, and I interview, and a few months later, they offer me a position, and I'm like, well, wasn't really thinking of moving to California, but it sounds interesting because look, Stacks was unbelievable for me to as a learning experience, but guys who were there since the '80s, there's kind of a ceiling here as how far I can go. Now I'm going to kind of have a chance to kind of run my department and be the kind of head numismatist and head
Mhm.
buyer, and so I took the opportunity and moved out to California. Worked for a company as a buyer for almost about 4 years, and then at that point you know things kind of changed a little with that company, and I started our current company, which is Rare Collectibles TV, with myself and two partners. One of them is Rick Tamaska, who, for coin people, he's a pretty well-known guy.
Yeah.
He's written like 9 books. He invented some of the categories they use for grading: proof coins, cameo, and deep cameo. You see these proof
Hmm.
coins that are like super reflective fields, and then like the device is really frosted. So he came up with kind of that. What defines cameo, what defines deep cameo. Went to the third-party grading services and worked with them to come up with a standardized what's cameo, and they put it on the label. They certify it as such now. So he was responsible for a lot of that, and he really made Franklin half dollars and Kennedy half dollars, which are hugely popular now. But 20, 30 years ago, he started
Yeah.
specializing in this, and people thought he was crazy. And now the first Kennedy half dollar sold for 6 figures, like less than a year ago. Now people are realizing how kind of ahead of the rest of the world he was on some of these series that he specialized. So I started this company with him and another partner. My other partner is more of a media guy. His background is in marketing and TV and things. So it's a really great fit because
No, no, no. But it's a great fit. But something also has changed here, right? Because now you're not just a behind the scenes buyer anymore, right? You're
right. Yeah, I'm
something
still
else.
I'm still the head buyer, but I'm starting to be more and more on the front end of things on TV. Rick is still the primary, kind of face. People have known who he is for so long, and he's been on TV for a while, and so he is on, probably, you know, 80-90% of the time. But I'm starting to be on TV more and more. Sharing my passion for this stuff. Which
Yeah.
is cool. I mean, it's something I fell into. I had no dreams of being on TV, but it's just kind of the type of business that I kind of fell into with the right partners and everything, and it's a lot of fun. I'm learning more and more of how to present things on
Yeah.
TV, and what resonates with clients, and
Well, I could tell, like, I remember the first couple times I just have, and at this point, you might as well tell whoever's watching, this, like what channels you can catch you guys on.
yeah, I wish I could remember them all. We're we're on a lot of different channels now, but it's Rare Collectibles TV. Our show is Rick's US Coin Show. So we're on DirecTV, Dish, Time Warner, Uverse. We're on local affiliates in different cities. We're also we have a lot of programming. You'll see on the weekends on like CNBC and Bloomberg and Fox Business. You'll see where we'll run hour long kind of infomercial
Right.
spots that feature some cool new coins that we gotta enough of that we can run it in a place like that where we have 50 or 100 or more of an item that we can share with that big of an audience.
Right.
So it's pretty exciting. It's funny, like it's really funny though, because like I had a friend of mine who was getting on a flight to, I forget where he was going, but he gets on a flight, and the flight had either Dish or Direct or something, and it's before the plane takes off, and he's flipping through the guide on the TV, and he sees this thing about John F. Kennedy. He's like, oh, Kennedy, that's cool, and he puts it on, and he and he sees me like talking about a Kennedy half dollar, and he's calling me like losing his mind over
Yeah.
it, like.
Well, so that's all. And there's been times when we had to we had one of the DirecTV or Dish, and I just flip on a Saturday night and catch you guys, and I would text you, and my wife, she she was great. She'd let me watch you guys watch, and we would get such a kick out of watching you. Now, but I want to go back to that real quick about your first couple times on TV, because the first couple times, I remember those first couple times you were like a little stiff, a little reserved. You're trying to figure your way out. And so how was that for you?
Yeah, I'm still I'm a
You're
lot
much
more
better now,
comfortable.
Jack.
Yeah, I am. I'm
Yeah.
much more comfortable than I was. I'm still learning. Again, it's like anything. The more you do it, the better you get. And I'm still trying to learn and kind of use get more tools. You know, and just get better, get more comfortable, get more prepared.
Right.
But yeah, early on it was rough. I was very nervous and very stiff, and I was roasted. I think this might be where you're heading, but that show, The Soup. That show, The Soup,
I
where
remember it now.
they make fun of TV
Yeah.
shows. Yeah,
Yeah.
I came onto the show, and I was like, I'm really excited to be here, and I started with the big hello, and the guy on The Soup,
Joe McHale, was it Joe McHale?
Joel McHale. Yeah, Joel
Yeah.
McHale just skewered me. Oh,
Yeah.
he was like, he said, oh, this guy is just as excited as you expect to be talking about rare coins. And then he says, he said, my guidance counselor was wrong. Drunk and apathetic is a way to get through life.